Listen to me very carefully, my friend. Killing will not bring you peace.
Peace was never an option.
Yes, the new X-Men film is finally here. From the director of one of the most stylish comic book movies, Kick-Ass, Matthew Vaughn follows up with another comic book movie based on the popular Marvel comics and fits in with the previous other X-Men movies. Critics have been calling First Class the best of all the X-Men movies. Do I agree with them? Well, that's what you're here to find out. As you probably already know, this film is a prequel to the previous X-Men films, however, feels more like a reboot at times, after it started going downhill after the second one. This film starts off where the first film started, with young Eric Lehnsherr in a German prison camp during the Second World War and bends the fuck out of the metal gate. However, his mutant ability is recognised by Kevin Bacon's character, Sebastian Shaw, who is very believable as a German officer, I might add. And after a way of bringing a new villain into the chronology of the other X-Men films, the rest of the film ensues introducing us to the other mutants which will make up the team known as the X-Men. I wonder how many times I can say X-Men in this video. James McAvoy plays Charles Xavier, or soon-to-be Professor X, a mutant who is able to read minds and project thoughts into other people. Could come in handy. The aged Magneto is played by Michael Fassbender, who is seen trying to get revenge against the certain villain he met years ago. Guess who yet? In the other X-Men films, I never sympathised with the character of Magneto and never would have joined his brotherhood if I were a mutant. But after seeing a brief origin story in this film, it's changed my mind because he's the biggest badass in this movie. There's a bar scene in Argentina where he has this confrontation with a group of gentlemen, which is just so incredibly cool. Michael Fassbender plays him down to a T and has set himself up as being one of my favourite actors today. In the last 15 minutes, however, his origins come out and he starts to speak Irish, which to me is very recognisable. Also, for the other characters, we have Angel Salvador, who has the ability to sprout angel wings and spit acid from her mouth, Banshee, who can project his voice at incredible frequencies, Hank McCoy, who becomes the blue furball beast, Mystique, Darwin, who can adapt to his environment, Cyclops' brother Havoc, and the film shows how they first got together, despite the fact that it's not very important because few of these characters returned for the previous X-Men films, i.e. the Bryan Singer films. But there must be a reason why these mutants are banding together. The reason being is because an abandoned script from one of the earlier James Bond films was leaked, and Sebastian Shaw and his crew decide to start a nuclear war to create a world full of mutants caused by the radiation from the bombs hitting Russia and America. Now, I am no scientist or anything, but by causing a nuclear war, will that really mutate everyone? A nuclear war will pretty much obliterate the planet. That is, of course, to the best of my knowledge. Sebastian Shaw's crew is known as the Hellfire Club and consists of Azazel, who I believe was Nightcrawler's father in the comic books, whose mother was Mystique, which begs the question, why didn't Matthew Vaughn include that scene in the movie? He plans on making this a new trilogy of X-Men films, so maybe in the later sequels we'll see, And just to establish this is definitely a Bond film, January Jones plays Emma Frost, a Bond girl who can turn herself into diamonds.
Diamonds are forever.
We then have an underdeveloped villain known as Riptide who can conjure up tornadoes, and the leader, of course, Sebastian Shaw, who can absorb vast amounts of energy and release it however he wants. There are also other characters from previous X-Men films which make brief cameos. For instance, the young Storm gets about 3 seconds of screen time. And Rebecca Romijn Stamos returns to play Mystique for a brief second, which I thought was very clever. There was also a very special cameo from a certain someone, which I don't want to ruin, however I'll just say that this cameo was better than that piece of shit movie he was in before. The film seemed all over the place, as we have a revenge film with Magneto and Sebastian Shaw, an almost teen high school movie with the young recruits, and then the storyline and characters taken straight from a Bond film. I'm not saying they don't go together, but it's an awful lot to cram into one film, despite the fact that there's not much going on in the middle. The whole film is silly, possibly unintentionally. For instance, at the end, spoiler alert, there's a fight scene between Banshee and Angel Salvador, and it just looks so stupid because they can both fly and it looks more like insects fighting. Also, shooting acid from your mouth doesn't look realistic. Also, Hank McCoy. It's no surprise that he becomes the mutant known as Beast, but you can't help but laugh when he's all blue and fuzzy. It looked believable in The Last Stand, but that's possibly due to the age of the actor playing him. Same thing can be said with Mystique when she's 8-year-old in this film. First of all, seeing a woman naked with blue scaly makeup is fairly hot to me, but seeing an 8-year-old with blue scaly makeup, there's nothing hot about that shit. To keep on the subject of the cheesy feel, we have a scene when the mutants are gathered in this one room and are going through the mutant names they want to give themselves, which is just cringeworthy. The film really starts to get good when the mutant quarters is attacked by Sebastian Shaw and the Hellfire Club, which brings a new meaning to the term. It's raining men! We then have a nifty training montage with Eric and Charles helping out the young mutants improve their powers, and there's a few cliche lines like, the power is the one who controls you, but overall it's a welcome addition to this film. Plus it gives a broader scope to these characters. Then I'd say the last 20 minutes is one big fight scene where all the different storylines come together. Sure, there are a few things to pick up on, but I'm not going to do that because it would give the wrong impression, because this is not a bad movie. One thing I will say though is the ending felt rushed. There were instances when I thought that it could have been developed a bit more, and the confrontation between Magneto and Sebastian Shaw wasn't that great because it was built up throughout the whole movie. In the earlier parts of the film there's not a lot going on, it doesn't get boring, and it's a way of introducing us to new characters that will appear in this film, a necessary inclusion for the cinema goers who may not be familiar with the X-Men comics. The performances are also great, especially from the two leads, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender. Now the biggest problem I had with the film are the two characters these actors are portraying. This film was hyped up as being the origin story of the hatred between Charles and Eric, as they start off as friends and eventually turn into enemies. Unless in the next film they become friends again, the relationship didn't really feel believable. There wasn't enough scenes with them together as we had a little too much time with the other mutants. We should have left the introduction of the younger mutants to subsequent movies and keep the relationship with Charles and Eric truly unfold in this film. In the trailer we were shown scenes with them sat down with Eric laying the gauntlet down and tells Charles of his intention to kill Sebastian Shaw. There just wasn't enough to leave me feeling that this was truly the origin story we were after. Now I know I've talked a lot about the things I didn't like about this film, but truthfully I really liked it. This is a great film, and so did the audience I saw it with, as everyone was saying that this is the best of all the X-Men films. I'm still unsure whether I like this more than the second X-Men film. Definitely has a more solid plot, but the characters were the downfall to me. We'll need to wait for the sequels to provide us with more scope. This is definitely a film I will need to rewatch again on DVD. I will either end up loving this film or just forget about it like I did with X-Men Wolverine. First impressions, I give this a generous 7.6 out of 10.
The ring. It chose you. Use its power to defend our universe. Become one of us. Become a Green Lantern.
In brightest day, in blackest night. I watched the Green Lantern the other night. I wish I didn't set my sights because the Green Lantern is fucking shit. Yes, the Green Lantern. I wasn't expecting a great film and I didn't get a great film. This film is a piece of shit. Ryan Reynolds plays, well, let's face it, Ryan Reynolds. As a pilot who is chosen by a mystical alien ring to protect the universe from an intergalactic villain alongside a team of other Green Lanterns on their planet Or, run by a purple guy with a massive forehead and big ears. Ryan Reynolds is decent as Hal Jordan from the simple fact that it fits his personality really well, kind of like a toned down Hannibal King from Blade 3. I am not at all familiar with the character of the Green Lantern, however one thing I got from this film are that his superpowers are so freaking stupid. He can create anything in his mind when he wears this ring. He can create anything. He flips a truck into the air using some imaginary spring. He returns a fireball back to Parallax using an imaginary catapult and creates an AA gun out of nowhere. What the fuck is this mousetrap? It's so fucking stupid, and I bought into a few things like the League of Lanterns or whatever they're called who protect the universe, but there are some of these lanterns which I just couldn't buy into. Geoffrey Rush voices the fish looking lantern and Michael Clarke Duncan voices Guess. Take a wild fucking guess of who he does the voice for. No, of course! The villain in this film is a being known as Parallax, which is this huge cloud with a face which may seem ridiculous, but it's actually quite scary at times. I didn't get a sense of threat with Parallax, unlike, say, Galactus from Rise of the Silver Surfer. There are a few redeeming factors, like Marc Strong as Sinestro, the leader of the Lanterns on the planet Aura. However, he wasn't giving anything to do. Peter Sarsgaard was decent as the role of some scientist who becomes injected with some sort of intergalactic virus and transforms into the Elephant Man's nutsack, which honestly isn't much of a transformation. Like I said, he was okay in the role, but every scene he is screaming, which gets really annoying. Nothing really follows up. We have Hal Jordan on Earth romancing Blake Lively, Peter Sarsgaard as the evil scientist dude and the incredibly brief relationship he has with his father, the Lanterns on their planet talking because really that's all they do. Hal Jordan training with the Lanterns again, which is so incredibly short. An underused Tim Robbins as the senator, and then the shit kicking off with Parallax. It's all exposition. There is also way too much CG, and at times it feels more like an animated film. Why was the suit an effect? Okay, I mean, I get the fact that it's supposed to be generated from energy, but are you telling me they couldn't make the suit and just put a few LED lights in? It worked for Tron Legacy, why couldn't it work with a Green Lantern? A lot of the things are way too predictable, and you can predict when things will happen 10 minutes after a certain event. Now, if this was made for kids, that's understandable, but in the screening I went to, everyone was over the age of 20. There was no kids at all. Also, the jokes in here led to nowhere. It's as though they said a joke and then they were cut to something quiet, giving time for the audience to laugh, and I repeat, no one was laughing. The ending is such an anticlimax and it's way too unbelievable, even compared to the other shit going on. I will spoil the film here, so just turn off this review because you know how I feel about the film. Parallax, this huge being, is destroyed by Hal Jordan alone. Years have they spent sending groups of Lanterns to destroy this fucking thing, and Hal Jordan beats it just like that. Even after it's grew to such a huge size from feeding off people's fear, he still manages to beat it. Bullshit! Personally, however, I didn't feel insulted by watching this. I didn't get the impression that the filmmakers were laughing at me for buying the ticket. I was just so incredibly bored by it. This isn't X-Men Origins Wolverine bad. This is Ghost Rider and the Hulk bad. For hardcore DC Green Lantern fans, you may like it. This just isn't my thing because I didn't know anything about the Green Lantern going in to see this. If you combine to the fact that the Green Lantern can create a Hot Wheels track out of nowhere, knock yourself out. I personally thought this was some bullshit. 4.5 out of 10.
Call me Martin. I've seen things you wouldn't believe. Things a boy shouldn't see. I was like any other kid. I didn't believe in the boogeyman. Then the world woke up to a nightmare.
Stakeland is the new horror road movie set in a post-apocalyptic world with vampire zombie type infected people. The main protagonist is Martin, a young kid who sees his family killed by a vampire and joins with this vampire hunter who reminds me of Sex Machine from Dusk Till Dawn. And that's pretty much it. It's similar to Zombieland if Zombieland wasn't a comedy. It's the road meets 28 Weeks Later. Stakeland is very serious and at times very dark. At first I didn't see the relationship between Martin and this vampire hunter who is known as Mr. It's like they're just together because they had to survive. I'm not sure how long they'd known each other when the film starts, so perhaps that's why. There are moments which make you jump and go, oh fuck! It's no holds barred. If you know someone is going to get a shovel rammed in their mouth, you will see a shovel get rammed into someone's fucking mouth. It's at times very graphic and feels so real. The director of this is a man named Jim Mickle, who previously has worked on numerous other low-budget movies as part of the electrical department, and it really shows because I get the sense that this is a guy who knows what he's doing. The characters travel both in car and on foot. and the shots of the countryside alongside the real depressing score really subjects you to the environment. It's very similar to The Road, as there's not a lot of storyline taking place in the movie. We know the characters are trying to get to a certain town or city, like in The Road, but the main storyline is simply the characters trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic vampire zombie-filled world. On this journey they also stumble upon a religious clan, which is never a good sign. There are a few light-hearted moments which are not really thrown in there to get a laugh out of you, like a vampire dressed up as Santa Claus. But there are a few things to pick up on which feel a little cliche. Throughout there are shots of Mr. training Martin with 2 stakes, which feels like something from a Karate Kid movie. And the romance between Martin and this girl he meets at the end, to me felt a little rushed, even though he is in need of some serious pussy. Truthfully, the main problem I had with this film, which doesn't mean that I didn't like it, I didn't get the sense that this world has truly gone to shit due to these vampires. They encounter a bunch of them, but to me, there wasn't enough of them. But for the ones that they are very creepy looking and acted more like zombies than vamps. And by looking at them, you feel this could be real. They don't transform into anything, and the characters explain how you can kill them. Like they are these vamps nicknamed berserkers, which can only be killed by ramming something sharp into the back of their heads, because they have a thick breastplate which prevents their heart from being punctured. I know this film will not make a lot of money and will quickly be forgotten, and only made $18,000 according to IMDb. Now I know this is a low budget independent movie, but I didn't get a sense of that. It looked really good. There's a lot to it, even though it still won't make the budget back, whatever that was. Overall, this is a very well made independent road movie which needs to be seen. Possibly not in theatres, but check it out on DVD. Only if you're a hardcore horror fan do I recommend you see this in theatres, but definitely check it out. 6.8 out of 10. That ends yet another review video, guys. I have no idea what I'll review in the next video, but one of which will definitely be Transformers Dark of the Moon, which I can't wait to see. Right now I'm going to watch E.T. and eat me some Freddos. Life is good.